Imagine this. You're scrolling TikTok, flipping between gym clips, memes, and maybe that friend's overshared dinner video. Suddenly, a live stream catches your eye. It's Charlie Kirk, America's most famous campus warrior. He's bold, animated, mic in hand, firing up a packed Utah Valley University auditorium. The crowd's locked in. Some are cheering, some heckling, some just there for the prove me wrong vibes. It feels electric. Then, crack. At first, maybe you think it's part of the show. Somebody dropped a chair, a balloon popped, but the sound is sharper, more chilling. The crowd jolts, chairs scrape, people scream, phones drop. And there's Charlie Kirk, the man who spent the last decade building an empire out of conservative campus activism, crumpling to the floor. That was Orem, Utah, September 10th, 2025. The kickoff event of his American comeback tour. A night that was supposed to be clout-worthy, full of hot takes, TikTok clips, and viral moments, instantly became a national tragedy. Within minutes, news alerts started pinging phones across the country. Charlie Kirk shot at Utah Valley University. Witnesses said a gunman fired from a nearby building. Kirk was rushed to the hospital, condition unknown, and then came the headline nobody wanted to read. Charlie Kirk dead at 31.
Shock in the US after a prominent right-wing activist, Charlie Kirk, was shot dead while addressing students on a campus in Utah.
We do have some breaking news coming into our newsroom right now. Charlie Kirk has passed away as a result of the shooting incident that occurred this afternoon in Utah.
This is going to be the worst news of the day, I think, to report. I'm just looking down at the screen now, a Truth Social post from the President of the United States. I'm going to read it. It was just posted, Donald J. Trump on Truth Social. The great and even legendary Charlie Kirk is dead. No one understood or had the heart of the youth in the United States of America better than Charlie. He was loved and admired by all, especially me, and now he's no longer with us, Melania, and my sympathies go out to his beautiful wife, Erica, and family.
The shock was immediate and massive. Capitol Hill froze. Political leaders from both sides of the aisle, people who normally wouldn't even say Kirk's name out loud, suddenly issued statements of grief. Donald Trump himself called Kirk a great guy and asked Americans to pray for his family. Conservative platforms, from Fox News to the smallest right-wing podcasts, turned their feeds into walls of tribute. Even rivals who had mocked Kirk endlessly stopped their memes, at least for a moment. The FBI, ATF, and local police swarmed the scene in Utah. What should have been another fiery campus debate had turned into a federal investigation. And for everyday conservatives, especially Gen Z conservatives, this wasn't just another political death. It was personal. Kirk wasn't a distant senator or a gray-haired pundit. He was the guy they'd seen on TikTok, the one who went toe-to-toe with woke students, the guy who made politics feel like a sport you could actually win. When someone like that is suddenly gone, it shakes not just the movement, but the entire political ecosystem. So, who is Charlie Kirk, really? Why does this matter so much? To understand, let's rewind. Charlie Kirk grew up in Illinois. At 18, instead of heading to college like everyone else, he did something different. He founded Turning Point USA. His mission? Mobilize young conservatives, give them a voice, and prove that right-wing politics could be just as viral, just as clout-worthy as anything on the left. In just a few years, TPUSA exploded. Thousands of chapters in high schools and colleges nationwide. Tens of thousands of students repping their gear, attending their conferences, posting their clips. On TikTok, Kirk's presence was massive. 7 million followers, and some posts breaking 50 million views. That's the kind of reach most politicians could only dream of. He knew how to package politics for the algorithm, sharp one-liners, confrontational Q and As, and moments that begged to be shared. And his events? They weren't dusty town halls. They looked more like concerts, slick stage setups, blaring music, bold graphics, speakers who came across less like politicians and more like celebrities. Every single thing was designed to create content. Charlie Kirk didn't just talk about politics. He turned politics into content, and he was good at it. But here's where it gets even bigger. Charlie Kirk wasn't just an influencer. He was Donald Trump's campus kingpin. Through Turning Point Action, the political arm of TPUSA, Kirk became a force multiplier for MAGA. His team pumped over $100 million into swing states like Arizona, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Their campaign was called Chase the Vote, and it wasn't just about rallies or speeches. It was a ground game, mobilizing students, knocking on doors, and making sure ballots got turned in. But here's the twist. It wasn't just students. Kirk fused his campus empire with faith movements. He leaned into church partnerships, charismatic Christian messaging, and even aligned with controversial movements like the Seven Mountain Mandate. The result? A pipeline that connected youth culture, religious revival energy, and Republican voter turnout. This wasn't just politics, it was political religion, and Kirk was the preacher. Now let's follow the money, because movements like this don't run on vibes alone. TPUSA's revenue was already impressive in 2020, sitting around $40 million. But by 2022, it had doubled to more than $80 million. That growth wasn't accidental. Kirk had a Rolodex of mega donors, wealthy conservatives, dark money groups, corporate backers who saw him as the guy who could bring Gen Z into the GOP fold. If you don't know what is a dark money groups, dark money refers to political spending by organizations that do not reveal their donors. This type of funding often comes from nonprofits that are not required to disclose their sources of revenue. As seen in this article from 2010, Turning Point USA has received funding from nonprofits like the Advantage Program LLC. Think about it. While traditional Republican organizations struggled to connect with anyone under 30, Kirk was filling arenas with 19-year-olds live streaming his speeches on TikTok. Donors saw the ROI, and they poured cash into his empire. Every viral moment, every headline-making debate, every flashy conference, it was all proof that Charlie Kirk could deliver something priceless. Youth energy for a party that desperately needed it. So now we come back to that awful moment in Orem. Why does this matter so much? Because Charlie Kirk wasn't just another political voice. He was the voice for conservative Gen Z. He made conservatism look less like a dusty lecture and more like a main-stage event. He gave young Republicans something to rally around, something to feel proud of. His death doesn't just remove a person. It removes the central gravity of an entire movement. Will Turning Point USA even survive without him? Can another leader step in with the same blend of charisma, clout, and confidence? Or does the organization crumble under the weight of its founder's absence? And here's the darker angle. What happens when a movement loses a leader to violence? Do they collapse in grief, or do they rally, harder than ever, around the idea of martyrdom? For conservatives, Kirk's death could become a rallying cry. For critics, it could be a warning sign of how toxic and violent American politics has become. Either way, nothing will ever be the same. Let's talk about Trump, because make no mistake, this tragedy directly impacts him. Trump has always been a master of rallies, of energy, of creating movements. But when it came to young voters, he had a problem. Gen Z leaned progressive. They mocked him on TikTok. They weren't showing up in big numbers. Charlie Kirk changed that. He built the pipeline Trump couldn't build on his own. He gave Trump Gen Z energy. And without Kirk, that pipeline is suddenly at risk. Will the events still draw the same crowds? Will the content still go viral? Will students still see conservatism as something cool? Losing Kirk isn't just losing a supporter. It's losing the entire vibe that Trump was counting on for his comeback. And this is where it hits the hardest. For Gen Z, this isn't a distant political story. This is your timeline, your For You page, your arena. Charlie Kirk wasn't some gray-haired senator. He was the guy you saw clashing with students on YouTube, the guy whose clips filled your feed whether you loved him or hated him. And now, he's gone. This tragedy forces Gen Z to confront something brutal. Political violence isn't an old people problem. It's here, it's now, and it just claimed someone your age group actually knew, actually followed, actually debated. Whether you agreed with Kirk or not, you felt his presence. And now, that presence has been ripped away in the most public, violent way possible. That leaves a vacuum, a silence, a big, unanswered question: who comes next? Here's the truth. Charlie Kirk changed American politics. He made conservatism a brand, a vibe, a movement that lived on TikTok as much as it did in Congress. And in one moment, one gunshot, that brand was shattered. Now, the movement faces a crossroads. Does it rally around his memory? Does it collapse without his leadership? Does someone else step up? Or does the energy die with him? Because whether you loved him or hated him, whether you cheered at his events or rolled your eyes at his clips, Charlie Kirk mattered. His presence reshaped how a generation thought about politics. And now, at just 31 years old, he's gone. So the question lingers, not just for conservatives, not just for Trump, but for Gen Z as a whole. Who picks up that mic? Who steps into the role? And honestly, this one hits me different. I used to watch Charlie Kirk a lot. Whether you agreed with him or not, you couldn't deny the guy had energy. He knew how to stir a crowd, and he made politics feel alive. And now, I'm sitting here asking myself, why? Why did it have to end like this? How does a political debater, someone whose entire thing was about words, about sparring with ideas, end up killed in front of everyone on a stage? How did we get to the point where disagreements aren't settled with arguments, but with bullets? It makes me sad, honestly. Sad for his family, sad for his followers, sad for this country. Because if a figure like Charlie Kirk can be gunned down while speaking to students, what does that say about where America is right now? This isn't just politics anymore. It's personal. And it forces us to ask the hardest question. What kind of country are we becoming when this is the outcome?